Cool. Hopefully you have finished reading the book by now or listening to the book right now. I want to just highlight a couple of super, super, super quick things. One, the city is gone now for whoever the war is against, or the government themselves because they got sick of things or whatever. Like, for whatever reason, bombs went off. The city is gone, which means that, like, Mildred and all of her friends, like, everyone that Montag has ever known is, like, gone and dead, which is awful, right? And probably not the ending that, certainly none of the ending that I thought I saw coming the first time I read this book. And it's terrible and it's sad. And so now the book ends with Montag and his Granger, this new guy that he found, and like a few of their friends, and like they're the last people from this city basically. There's this, the community that Granger knows about that Montag is going to be introduced to, but like it's almost like a hopeless thing. So I want you to just like be aware of a couple of things. On page 157, it's like 156, 157, at the end of the book, Granger starts talking about a phoenix and how like a phoenix is reborn from the ashes, but like what people have that is a different, is that like people can continue to learn, right? Every time a phoenix is reborn, it's just like the same phoenix over and over and over, like Fox from Harry Potter. Good dude, but same. But like what people can do differently is like we can learn from the mistakes of the past, and so with every generation we can bring more people along. And so he starts talking on page 157 about like, this is our job now, right? Like this isn't about me having knowledge. And I think that's something that like Montag sometimes gets stuck on, is like he's like, oh, I know things now, I have to force other people to know things. And Granger's like, no. We're just going to pass this along. We're going to take what we have. It's not about us. It's not about me being smart or good or whatever. It's just about me like bringing people into this like collective shared knowledge so that we can together learn from what we did wrong and then be better the next generation, right? Rather than being the same old phoenix that's reborn, be a better group of people every time we like make a mistake, like the mistake that was just made of murdering the entire town. And so in some ways it's like hopeless, but it's also like a hopeful thing, right? And I love what Granger says about like putting a mirror in front of your own face and like looking at yourself, because he's saying like, look, we're not off the hook, right? Like everyone maybe did something wrong, right? Like Montag knew for a long time, I think, that something was going on. He had a gut feeling, but he didn't do anything about it until like Clarice, right? You have people like Faber who have known overtly that things are wrong for a long time and done nothing. You have characters like Mildred who like distract themselves and pretend like nothing is ever wrong. But also because she's pressured by everyone around her to pretend like she's happy, and so she feels like that's what she had, right? Like everyone in this society did something to contribute to like this kind of terrible way that things were. And so I think that's what Granger is saying, which is pretty powerful, which is like, hold a mirror up to yourself. What are you doing? What do you need to do differently? And so I think that is a pretty powerful part. And I like that kind of that's how the book ends, right? Is by Granger being like, hey, hold a mirror up. Person who's reading this book, like, are you always curious? Do you always, you know what I mean? Like, are you always vulnerable? Do you always bring people in? Do you always, like, I don't know, any of the themes and things we picked up from the book. The last really quick thing is, in case you didn't pick up on it at the very end, on the other side of the river was the tree of life, that thing that Montag decides he's going to share. Like, as these men are walking, like, towards this burned out town, they're all, like, sharing pieces of the like works, the literature that they have memorized with one another. And that one that Montag has is from Revelation, which is, I don't know, kind of cool. It's like people who love Jesus, like, look, it's like Jesus overtly in this book. But also I think it's just like a hopeful thing, right? These are not his words that he's going to use to comfort, which I think is like sometimes the power of like, there's wisdom in like learning from something else rather than just your own self and your own experience. And obviously, like, I think the Bible is like the ultimate wisdom. But I think even like, I don't know, I think that's not something that like Montag was coming up with, and it wasn't like his words being comforting. It wasn't like his wisdom. It wasn't about him. It was him being like, here's this really awesome, really beautiful thing from someone else. So I love it extra because it's from the Bible, but I think it would be cool even if it wasn't from the Bible, because he's like finding hope and truth in something that like 2 weeks ago he never would have heard of, right? So anyway, those were a couple thoughts. Let me know if you're confused. The ending is, I think, very abrupt, but I just wanted to make sure those couple things were clear and like remind us about like the mirror thing, right? Like that's the point of reading a book, is to try to put yourself in the shoes of one of those characters. And so I've said this in a couple of our like Zoom book club so far, but I want to be Clarice. But like, if I'm being honest, like, I'm certainly not. I'm like, at best, Mildred. So anyway, do that for yourself. Well, feel free to incorporate any of those ideas into your project for next week. Reach out to me if you have any questions, and I'd like you, and see you later. Oh, see you at our Zoom that we're doing next week as a class. So everyone prepare your longest story, and you're going to all tell them at once. Okay, love you.